This is the Zemar Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch Zemar.
Welcome back to the Zemar Podcast. We have lots of information for employers, both small and large. And today I asked Tillirson to join us and talk about enrollment platforms and what employers are facing today, and then what are we looking at in the future. Sims, thank you so much for taking the time this morning and being on the podcast.
Yeah, Butch, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, can you give our audience a little bit of background on who Sims is and who you are and what you do in the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So day job is the least interesting part. I lead sales in the Southeast for a benefits enrollment firm called EOI. Moonlight as a gigging musician, recording artist, and worship pastor on the weekends. I've got a wife named Brianne who's also in the biz, 3-month-old son named Jack, and a puppy named Doc Holliday.
That's awesome. A little highlight of everywhere in your entire life. So obviously things have definitely changed since COVID, and prior to COVID, I know employers were running the challenges. We had clients that large enough employers that still wanted to do PDFs. They were still doing things old school. And so have you seen COVID make a transition for some of these employers when it comes to open enrollments?
I absolutely have. And I think, Butch, you're in the industry. We're one of the slowest industries to adapt,
So
right?
true.
So I always tell the story. It was early 2020. I worked with a 700 life employer, and they were still pushing paper, and it was like pulling teeth to get them on a system. But I think what we're seeing now is everything is just accelerated through COVID. Now a 50 life employer can have employees in 40 states, and they can't do paper anymore, right? So they are out of necessity moving towards more electronic, more advanced solutions.
So, and along with that, with some expansions in advanced technology, now a lot of employers have adapted to the work on remote concept, right? And so how do you do open enrollments when they're working from their house?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So a lot of people talked about the buzz term was meet employees where they are when COVID started. And what I like to say now is meet employees where they want to be met. So something like 86% of employees want to work from home at least one day per week. But we can't assume that everybody wants to be remote forever and that everybody wants to get text messages and email blasts. So the key to reaching employees today is being flexible and having quite a few options at your disposal to reach employees where they want to be met. Because you, Butch, you may want to get a paper benefit booklet in the mail to read at your house, even though you work remote. You probably don't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's some people that do want paper form, and people call our office and say, hey, can I get a booklet sent out to my house with all my providers that I have access to? And I'm like, booklets haven't really been sent out in years.
Right.
And obviously it's created a learning curve for some of the workforce. And so have employers and then also the employees have challenges with these onboarding programs being online and electronic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a learning experience for everyone, even providers of some of these solutions, right? So some of the interesting things that I've seen folks do is create video trainings to help people walk through kind of like quick start guides that you could download that are step-by-step of how do I log into, an employee navigator, for instance. And then the last piece is we kind of danced around it with the benefit booklet deal, but some people still want an old school human touch. So there are folks, HR professionals and outsourcers alike who will walk people through on a phone call to get them really familiar with using a new system or a new process.
Now, with a lot of things being more remote, do you feel like there's more or less engagement with employees during the process of electing benefits using the technology platform?
I think there's more engagement now, believe it or not. And it's because, our work lives have changed. I still work between, 8 and 6 or whatever every day, but I'm kind of all over the place, balancing family, balancing life. And most people are doing that as well. And with that, most enrollment firms, tech providers have adapted. So like our enrollers, for instance, and this is not unique to us, are available after traditional work hours and on the weekends. So employees now have the ability to be more engaged because their HR teams and their benefits partners are being more flexible with them.
Do you feel that when explaining because your enrollment team actually walks them through the benefit package, is that correct? And so even though we have virtual platforms now, right? So you could do Zoom meetings with a presentation or a video. How are employees taking that concept of understanding the benefits in the enrollment platform and then explaining the benefits on your behalf? And how's that process looking, and how are the employees taking it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that we're still seeing that quite a few employees want to get on a phone or on a Zoom like we're on right now and walk through together. But there are all kinds of amazing products out there today that are, decision support tools that can be bolted on to any bin admin platform, and they actually walk through if an employee doesn't want to talk to somebody on my team or to you or to their broker, whoever, they can walk through at their own pace. So there are just so many great options for employees today to be able to understand in the way that they like to learn.
How's the relationship working with the broker and the enrollment platform? So in the regards of the connection with the employer and the employees, is it kind of like a handoff from the broker to you guys for the enrollment process, or are you guys tag team with the agency that's the benefit broker?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we prefer to be an extension, so to speak, of the broker and HR team. There are certainly situations where folks say, "Hey, I don't want to deal with that. This is your circus. You have fun." But that's not the preferred method. For us to reach employees the right way, we need a clean partnership with the employer and with the broker so that we can all work together to accomplish the goals we have.
What are the, give me some, I guess, pros and cons of an agency or a broker? Instead of trying to build the enrollment team in-house, we're outsourcing it, right? That's essentially what we're doing by working with a guy like Sims, right? And so, and there's pros and cons with that. I guess, can you walk us through what are the advantages of outsourcing versus actually bringing it in-house?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this part brief. Really the pros are, one, you work with an expert, right? So all we do is enrollment and communication and education all day with groups all over the country. So we're the experts there. That's a benefit. Second benefit is all of our benefit counselors are salaried W-2 employees. And if an agency, anybody tries to mimic that, it's very cost prohibitive. So another pro working with us is that you get the cost savings there. The con is that you lose control, at least to an extent. You can work with us. We can put together scripts for our benefit counselors and we can do trainings. But at the end of the day, there are people, and you have to have some level of trust to let us do our job, so to speak. And that can be difficult for people. Which I understand because the two of us know this all too well, but we claw and fight to get our clients and to keep them. And you don't want to put that client's fate in someone else's hands sometimes.
Hey gang, ever wonder what it's like to be a small business owner? It's confusing. Weird expenses coming out of nowhere. And when you throw in health insurance, forget it. Nobody understands how that works. If you own a business, big or small, it's one of the biggest expenses you have all year long. And yet, we all wait until open enrollment at the end of the year, and then we think to ourselves, next year I'll get a jump on it. And then it's another year of paying way too much. If you're a business owner, big or small, HR representative that wants to impress the boss, give Butch Zemar of Elite Benefits of America a call. Save yourself or your boss thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars a year. Reach out to Butch right now, 708-535-3006, or shoot him an email, butch@elitebenefits.net. And be sure to check out the Zemar podcast. Don't wait till the last minute. Put Butch Zemar to work for you now.
You started off that saying that we are one of the last industries to change for just about everything, but that also includes of giving up some of that control, because there was a period of time, a lot of industries where the company selling the product or service had controlled the entire process.
Yeah.
And you also rebutted that by saying that instead of it's where the employees want to be met, right? And so it's more, and now it's the paradigm has shifted in a lot of ways. This is not your first rodeo. You've been in the industry for some time. From a high level, I guess, what are some things that employers should look out for with an enrollment team? Because obviously you've been in a couple spots that have these enrollments and education and engagement, communication. And so I guess what are some of the things employers should be looking for?
Yeah, so I think that, paramount to a good partnership with an enrollment team is you got to look at every opportunity like a project. So we got to have goals for what we're doing. Engaging employees is great, and educating them is great, but why are we doing it? Do you have a retention problem? Do you have a recruiting problem? Are you spending way too much money on your PPO plan and you need to shift employees to a high deductible plan and you want to pay for some voluntary benefits to round out their coverage? So I think that's the key. And then something else to look out for that I've just seen rampant in the industry growing up in VB is you got to be cognizant of who you're partnering with, and understand what their motivations are and what they stand to gain from winning your business. So, there are a lot of folks that have transitioned to fee-based consulting on the enrollment side or just salaried benefit counselors. And I think that's a great trend because we can guarantee, hey, these enrollers just want to educate your people because they get paid no matter what. But there are the folks that come out there and they're just making commission, and there's good to be said for that and there's bad to be said for that, but it's just important to know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. I always encourage ask enough questions so you know what's going on. You have a good feel of how the process works, and you can make better decisions that way. Having a lot of faith in one thing could work at times, but you definitely have to do a little bit more due diligence on it. What are you seeing as we move forward? Where I would, there's part of me that feels that we COVID's in the rearview mirrors, even though there's always a new variant that seems to be popping up. But besides that, as we move forward, what do you see in the future? And maybe some changes that are coming, maybe some things are already in the pipe, and maybe some things that from the world of Sims, what you see coming up for employers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, you're right. We're trying to put COVID in the rearview mirror for better or for worse. But it's left us with some lasting changes. 2-3 years ago in the enrollment business, everyone was committed to, hey, we're going to meet one-on-one, face-to-face with everybody, no matter what. And we're just seeing that, while there are certainly folks that like that, we're never going to go back to the way things were. So I think that flexibility is going to remain a trend. And digital adoption is going to be really important. So one of the trends that I'm seeing right now is where communication used to be, hey, let's hit people with flyers and home mailers and emails for 3 months before open enrollment. We'll talk about benefits and then we'll all go on our merry way. Employers are having to get creative with how they reach their employees. And it's, are we creating a year-round kind of communication plan to encourage, Butch, you need to go get your dental cleaning in January, or you need to go do your well checkup in March to make sure you get your health screening riders paid out on all your VB products, or whatever it may be. And then the other piece there is getting creative with, how you show the value of benefits. We're seeing a lot of employers today use total reward statements when in their recruitment efforts, rather than relying on like a standard offer letter, just to sweeten the pot and to say, hey, we pay for this fantastic benefits package, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't know about it and you don't know the value of it, right? So I think, to summarize that again would be, remained focused on flexibility. So the willingness to meet employees where they want to be met, creativity in reaching your current employee base, and creativity in reaching prospective employees that you're looking to hire.
And you brought up a good point. What are some technology points that you're using for the employer on their behalf to engage and communicate with the employees throughout the year? What are some formats that are being used?
Yeah, so right now we're primarily we use a ton of text messaging. I think we sent 1.2 million text messages last year. It's kind of out of this world for our industry. We still do a lot of emailing, but we're focused on creating really nice experiences. So it's not some 2-page long email for an employee to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then we leverage things like microsites and just landing pages so employees can see their benefits anytime they want to. And the kind of communication plan I alluded to earlier, Butch, we're trying to be really, really intentional with how we reach employees, because we don't want to have to start over from scratch at every open enrollment. We want employees to be engaged and actually use their benefits if they're paying for them.
For sure. And so with all those text messages, some people listen to this saying, well, I don't want to bombard all these employees. And so I assume the text messages are short. And then I guess on average, how many text messages does one employee actually receive throughout the year?
Yeah. So an employee is not going to receive more than like 12 text messages throughout the year. Likely, one a month on the high end. We may ramp that up for open enrollment, but yeah, they're really, really short. They're not novellas. They're more like, hey, Butch, here are the benefits that are available. Click this link to visit your microsite, schedule a one-on-one call. So again, the goal is just at the end of the day to get people to look at their benefits and use them. And we're just having to be creative with how we get people to do that.
Yeah, and sounds like, I know from just a benefits agency standpoint, the technology of using those communications tools are very minimum, if at all. And so obviously partnering with companies that are already utilizing the tool, that's a savings in itself. I don't want to pay for the platform. Obviously, there's some revenue share and some other cost arrangements, but usually dealt with the broker versus the employer in most cases. But it's worthwhile looking at. As we wrap things up here, you had mentioned that you do these side gigs on the nights and the weekends. And I tell you, every time you've said that, it reminds me of that book. I think it's Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, when he talks about the Beatles. And they did something like 1,300 shows before they ever made an album. And so how are these gigs going? And then maybe we see you on the mainstream one day.
Yeah, so I've definitely slowed down since having my kid. I play every weekend at church, which is a nice way to scratch the itch. And then mostly today I sit in with other bands on guitar or on keyboard. So still releasing and recording music on Apple Music, Spotify, all that good stuff. But I'm not doing a ton of gigging for my own stuff these days to keep the wife happy.
Yeah, no, life takes its toll. I was a big scuba diver until the kids started getting old enough. And then that kind of just slowly took it. I always saw other people do it, and I'm like, that'll never happen to me. And I probably lasted longer than most, but it definitely, the schedule just gets too full and you just can't do it. And there's other commitments that come in the way. You had mentioned about the Apple and Spotify music, right? And so I'm assuming you can listen to your own music on there, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. So hopefully you have some success doing that. Obviously, playing in a church is probably definitely fulfilling in a spiritual way. And then, of course, we got to get Jack a writing number and start writing some business out there, right? And so start contributing to the household. And so, but this has definitely been great. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, my understanding is you work almost exclusively through brokers, but employers can reach out. You could always find a broker relationship to work with. But I guess if somebody needed to reach out to you and expand this conversation a little bit further, or ask any questions based on what we talked about, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get to me, Butch, I spend way too much time on LinkedIn, so you can always reach me there. And if you prefer to call, text, or email me, my contact information is on my LinkedIn as well.
We'll probably end up going to Spotify and Apple Music and download some music, but this is great. I look forward to maybe having you back on, and maybe even having a panel with some the enrollment specialists, because employers need to move out of the dark ages, and same with benefit brokers, and move into the new age. And so teams like yours definitely helps everybody move into the right direction. So this has been great. Maybe we'll have it back on.
Yeah, Butch, thanks so much for having me. Would love to be back on anytime.